In the heart of the city, where the streets buzzed with activity during the day, there was a different kind of energy that thrived after dark. It was a world of neon lights and whispered secrets, where shadows danced and mysteries lurked in the corners. And in the midst of it all, there was one man who navigated the nighttime street with ease: Jack, the night rider. Jack was a cab driver who worked the graveyard shift, ferrying passengers through the city's winding streets long after most people had gone to bed. He was a man of few words, his tired face hidden by the faint light from the car's dashboard as he drove through the night. One fateful evening, as Jack cruised through the city's deserted streets, a figure emerged from the darkness and flagged him down. It was a woman, her features covered by the shadows, her eyes gleaming with a ghostly light. "Are you for hire?" she asked, her voice soft and ethereal. Jack nodded, his curiosity piqued by the mysterious stranger. Without a word, she climbed into the back seat of his cab, her presence casting a strange spell over the vehicle. Jack glanced at the woman through the rearview mirror, a shiver running down his spine as he noticed how her eyes seemed to gleam with an unnatural intensity. Despite his unease, he followed her instructions as she directed him towards a part of the city that Jack rarely ventured into: the outskirts, where the buildings grew sparse and the streets grew dimmer. As they drove, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension that gnawed at him. Something about the woman seemed off, and he couldn't help but wonder what had led her to summon a cab in the dead of night to a place where few dared to tread. Eventually, they arrived at their destination, a dilapidated house nestled at the end of a darkened street. The windows were boarded up, the paint peeling from the walls, and an air of abandonment hung heavy in the air. "This is it," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This was once my home. I need to get my mother's old diary. Would you wait for me?" Jack hesitated, his instincts urging him to drive away and leave this strange woman behind. But something compelled him to stay, a nagging curiosity that refused to be ignored. Reluctantly, Jack stepped out of the cab and followed the woman towards the decaying house. As they approached, Jack's senses were assaulted by a wave of foreboding, as if the very walls themselves whispered tales of long-forgotten secrets. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay, the floorboards creaking underfoot as Jack and the woman made their way through the dimly lit corridors. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, his senses on high alert as he searched for any sign of danger. Suddenly, the woman stopped in front of a closed door. It should be in this room, her hand trembling as she reached out to grasp the handle. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open, revealing a room bathed in moonlight. And there, lying on a tattered bed, was a figure shrouded in darkness, a woman, pale and still, her eyes closed as if in peaceful slumber. Beside her lies the old dusty diary the woman has been searching for. "What is this place?" Jack whispered, his voice barely audible in the silence. But the woman remained silent, her gaze fixed on the figure before them. And as Jack approached, a chill ran down his spine as he realized the truth. The woman on the bed was not asleep, but dead. Panic surged through Jack's veins as he realized the gravity of the situation. He had stumbled upon something far more sinister than he could have ever imagined, and now he was trapped in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. With a sense of urgency, Jack turned to the woman, his voice trembling as he demanded answers. But before she could respond, a sound echoed through the house, the unmistakable creak of footsteps approaching from the darkness. In an instant, Jack knew they were no longer alone. And as the shadows closed in around them, he realized that he was about to embark on the most perilous journey of his life, one that would lead him into the heart of darkness itself. He exchanged a fleeting glance with the woman, their eyes reflecting shared fear and uncertainty. As the footsteps drew nearer, Jack's instinct screamed at him to flee, to escape the clutches of whatever lurked in the shadows. But a stubborn curiosity rooted him to the spot, refusing to let fear dictate his actions. The sound of the footsteps ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, the only sound echoing through the oppressive stillness. Then, without warning, the darkness erupted into motion as figures emerged from the shadows, their forms twisted and contorted in grotesque shapes. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the nightmarish apparitions before him. The woman beside him trembled, her hands clutching at Jack's arm in a desperate bid for reassurance. But Jack had no words of comfort to offer, his mind racing with a jumble of thoughts and emotions. In that moment, he knew that they were facing something beyond comprehension, something ancient and malevolent that defied all reason. And as the figures closed in around them, Jack braced himself for the inevitable confrontation. But just as the darkness threatened to consume them, a blinding light pierced the gloom, illuminating the room with its brilliant radiance. Jack shielded his eyes against the glare, blinking away the spots that danced before his vision. When he dared to look again, he saw that the figures had vanished, leaving behind only wisps of smoke and a lingering sense of dread. The woman let out a trembling sigh of relief, her grip on Jack's arm loosening as the tension drained from her body. Jack felt a surge of gratitude towards whatever force had intervened on their behalf, sparing them from whatever horrors lay in wait. As they made their way out of the decaying house, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of profound unease lingering in the air. He knew that this encounter would stay with him long after the night had faded into memory, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edges of perception. But for now, all Jack could do was drive, his mind filled with questions that had no answers, and his heart heavy with the weight of the unknown. And as the city's lights faded into the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had glimpsed something far older and far darker than he could ever have imagined.